Some of the content of Patriots Unfiltered may not be suitable for all audiences. Listener discretion is advised.
The world's original podcast.
Live from the Patriots Haus in Frankfurt, Germany, this is Patriots Unfiltered, presented by Toyota's official website for deals, buyatoyota.com. Patrioten ungefähr.
All right, welcome to Patriots Unfiltered. We are live, not from Gillette Stadium, but Patriots Haus in Frankfurt, Germany. Let me hear it. All right. This is Patriots Unfiltered's first international show.
Yes.
The first time we've done this outside of the United States. We've been all over the country doing it because of, some winning in the past, but it's the first time we've done it anywhere else but the United States. So thank you for all coming. Give yourself a hand. All right.
Give yourself a hand.
We're going to be here for the next 2 hours. It's Paul Perillo. It's Mike Dussault. It's Evan Lazar, who just did yeoman's duty. 2 hours of Catch-22.
He loved that.
Yeah, it's not work for Evan.
No.
Right? But
Never.
I gotta get ready though first before I gotta.
Oh, you got your kid on.
I got,
Whoa.
Why is he being booed?
Once again, Fred Kirsch making friends.
Somebody told me that this was the Patriots of Germany. No? No?
Nope.
Yannick, care to weigh in? Yannick?
They're not in the Bundesliga. No? No? Okay. All right. Well, anyway, I figured while in Germany, I would wear something German. Is that okay? All right. All right. So we have a lot to cover today.
Cheap pop.
What a showman.
We have a lot to cover today. Obviously, we know why we're here. The Patriots are going to be playing the Colts this Sunday over at the stadium where Eintracht plays. And, we couldn't be more excited to be here and to be representing the New England Patriots. It's just a great thing. But we're going to get into it. I don't know how many people here have watched or listened to our – I just got cut off.
Whoa.
But how many people here have watched or listened to this show, Patriots Unfiltered? How many people? Okay. Not half of you. So nobody can admit it. Don't be shy. Yeah. Just so you know, we do this show during the season every Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday at noontime in East Coast. So it's at 6 p.m. in Germany. And then in the off season, we do it every Tuesday and Thursday. And we talk all about the Patriots for 2 hours. And you can call in, you can email us. So now that you know about it, I would expect everybody here to be watching this show. And if you don't catch it live every week, you can listen to it on demand on Patriots.com and on YouTube. So we're excited to introduce a lot of you to the show for the first time. So, guys, let's get into it. We've got a lot to talk about, a lot to cover in the next 2 hours. First of all, let's talk about the state of the team, because we've got some guys that didn't play last game for whatever reason, and there's a lot of reports back home in the Boston area about things aren't that good with the team.
Yeah.
Who wants it first? Paul, go.
Yeah, I mean, it's not a great situation, obviously, with the defensive backs you're talking about, Freddie, with J.C. Jackson and Jack Jones, and it looks like, according to a lot of the reports, that J.C. Jackson will not be making the trip here to Germany for the game, and evidently there were some discipline-related things that we don't know all the details of, but that contributed to those guys not playing as much against Washington. And, it's a quick turnaround. They got to get here. We got to get ready for the Colts on Sunday. And I think Bill Belichick decided it was in the best interest of the team not to have him join in. Yeah. And it's not an ideal situation.
It's tough because, the defense has taken some hits.
Well, that's the big part. Fred is, we can talk about the drama of it all, but they're going to have to come here and figure out how to defend against, Gardner Minshew and this Colts offense that, has some pieces. I mean, Michael Pittman's a good receiver. Jonathan Taylor, good running back that, we saw a couple years ago that did a lot of damage to the Patriots defense. So I think the Colts have some pieces. Is Jack Jones the guy that's going to have to step up? I mean, he had some problems last week as well. Didn't start the game, so you might be looking at Sean Wade again coming out as maybe the starter.
Yeah, I mean, I think you're just looking for reasons or players that might be showing signs of their head is not all the way in it. And I think when you watch the tape of those two guys, there are moments when you're like, are they doing the right things? Like you're just, kind of a little confused about what's going on. And specifically, I think with Jack Jones on the touchdown to Jalen Waddle at the end of the game against Miami, he's right in the middle of a big coverage bust that basically gave them a chance to ice the game. So I think that we look at those guys, it just would be nice if the Patriots could maybe rely on reliable players, more reliable players. And I think that those two guys, JC was brought back and Jack Jones was, drafted to help upgrade the secondary. But if they can't be relied upon week in and week out, that's a big problem.
I'd just say real too. I mean, just to bring Sean Wade back up. I mean, he's a guy who's been here for a few years, kind of waiting for his chance. You're kind of buried on the depth chart, and now this might be it for him. So it's an opportunity that he needs to take advantage of.
Yep. Yeah, and I thought it was interesting. So he started the last game against Washington, but then once Jackson and Jones got involved later in the first quarter into the second, we didn't see any more of Wade. I agree with Mike. I think it's time we sort of see some different players. And I like the way, I know you kind of stumbled, but rely on some reliable players. I mean,
trying to say it the nicest way possible.
Yeah, and I think right now there's some questions, and I think that's what Bill Belichick and his coaching staff are trying to fight through and figure out, Freddie, is where do we go? What do we have that we can rely on? And this is, I think, an opportunity to kind of find out, outside of the box kind of trip that they're not, you don't take international trips every season. If you're not with us, then you're not part of it.
So let's talk about who they might depend on against this particular team, the Colts. Any Colts fans in the house? No? Good.
No Colts jerseys?
Because if you said I was going to tell you to leave.
Wow.
But no, honestly, you look at the Colts and you thought going into this year they had a new rookie quarterback and, they probably weren't going to do that well with him. And he hasn't played every game, but their backup Gardner Minshew has played well. The Colts score points.
Yep.
This is not a team that is going to roll over. What do the Patriots need to do against this team? Particularly, we'll stick on the defense, because that's what we're talking about, to take this game against the Colts.
Well, I mean, I think just to highlight the last two games, and I'm sure, Evan will time in too, but the big plays have really been hurting this defense right now. And I think that's, you saw last week, we spent so much time this season talking about, hey, how do they get a good start? How do they get a lead? How do they not win, not lose the turnover battle? And, we've seen those things, recently, but it didn't make a difference last week. And I think, the big plays, the rise of the big plays has really been a problem now. Are we as worried about the big plays with Gardner Minshew? Maybe not. So I definitely got to point to Jonathan Taylor, too, because I think if he gets running, it's going to be a long
That's
day.
at the top of my list. Yeah. I think, in Zach Moss, we don't really talk about, but he's up there among the league leaders in rushing right now. He's, and I know Taylor's back now, but Moss is making it difficult for the Colts to just sort of turn it all back over to him. So I think it starts with stopping the run. Fred, we're looking for positives. We're looking for things that you can rely on. The Patriots' run defense is one of the real bright spots, I think, of the team. They've been pretty stout most of the season against the run. I think they're second in the league in yards allowed per carry. So I think that's one factor, I think, going into the game that probably lines up in New England's favor is their ability to stop the run, because that's the way the Colts want to start. That's what they're going to make their big plays off of, is running the ball and then taking their shots with Pittman and Pierce downfield.
Yeah, I mean, the Colts are running the Eagles' offense. Shane Steichen, I always stumble on that name for some reason. He is running the same offense that he ran with Jalen Hurts last year in Philly. There's a lot to test the defense schematically. There's a lot of RPOs. There's a lot of run-pass options that include quarterback runs. And they do it with Gardner Minshew just like they were doing it with Anthony Richardson. He had a 17-yard touchdown run against the Browns a couple weeks ago. So he'll run a little bit, and those plays just have a lot of different elements to them that test the defense mentally. So if you're the Patriots defense, this is like always, but this is a classic, do your job, you have this and I have that type of game. And that's been what's been kind of their issue, I would say, the last couple of weeks. I mean, you expect Miami to move the ball against everybody and score some points, but 11 explosive plays that Mike was talking about, 20-plus yard gains, 11 of them the last 2 weeks. A lot of those are not just getting beat man on man. A lot of it is because there's coverage busts or guys not in the right places and things like that. And this Colts offense will already test you that way. So if you're not, on your assignments, then it's going to be a long day.
Yeah. So on the other side of the ball, the Patriots over the last few games, really more than that, have had trouble putting points on the board. They've been stuck at 17, and they've got to turn that around somehow this week. They've got to get at least into the 20s, I think, to win this game. So
Stop me if you heard it, Freddie. 25.
Okay.
Can you get over 25? And that probably would be enough to win, because I agree the way these guys are talking about the Colts. They're 4-5. They're not a great team, but they're still sort of
alive.
Yeah, they're alive, even though they lost their rookie quarterback. Gardner Minshew has been okay, when he's been able to protect the ball, and they've generally been able to score some points. It's not a great offense. It's not overly explosive. Like Evan brought up Miami. You expect to give up chunk plays against Miami. That shouldn't be the case here. So the Patriots offense has to do its part to keep up.
Yeah.
And I think that starts up front. I think it's been a little bit better the last couple of weeks. We'll see if, the Trent Brown situation is another one that bears watching. He didn't play the last game and didn't practice on Wednesday. He was in the locker room this morning. My spies tell me. I don't know if you guys have moles in the locker room. Yes, Mike Reese told me.
We have people who work there
and I trust Mike Reese. So
he also told everybody on Twitter.
Yeah.
But that's okay.
He told me. He told me first.
Yeah.
Well, Eric,
don't be jealous.
Did you get your practice report?
Hold
on, Eric. Evan. Did you get your practice report yet?
No, and this has been tough for me the last couple days.
Okay, because we were going to play the song.
I know, but I know who was there and who wasn't. So if you want to play the song,
we should play the song.
Go ahead.
Let's go, Faith. Why don't you play it?
But I'm in Germany. I'm not at practice. This doesn't make any sense.
Just go with it.
Who was the moon? Who wasn't there? What did he see?
All right, fresh off the plane, here he is.
Are you going to ask me the mood too?
Yeah,
we got to recreate
on a normal
it.
show, usually Evan will have to step out to go to practice, and he'll give us the report on who was there and who wasn't there. But I also always like to know, what was the mood? What were the guys? Were they smiling? Were they dancing? Were they just? And he'll give me the mood as well. So that's why we play that song. But Evan, tell us about who was and who wasn't at practice.
Well, just for the record, the mood is 100% determined by the weather. Like, if it's cold, the mood stinks. If it's hot, then we're all happy. At practice today, though, no Trent Brown again, and no J.C. Jackson. So J.C. Jackson hasn't practiced either day. Neither has Trent Brown. We'll get the injury report here shortly, which comes in at like 10 o'clock now, Germany time, which definitely threw me off. But yeah, the Trent Brown, J.C. Jackson not practicing. I would assume that means that Connor McDermott is probably in line to start again at left tackle like he did last week. And all the reports indicating that J.C. is not going to come here to Germany. Well, he hasn't been at practice the last couple of days, so it looks like that's going to be accurate.
Okay. All right, so there's your practice report. Getting back now to this offense and putting points on the board. We talked about the offensive line. Trent Brown. Is this a case of maybe we'll see you on Sunday? He's just getting that veteran rest?
I don't know.
Because he's been hurt.
That's what we thought last week. I thought for sure he was going to play last week, but I don't know. It doesn't look good, and I think if Trent is dealing with an injury too, to stick him on a plane for 7 hours, and it might be a little much for him. But I thought Connor McDermott did all right last week. So they've had to really beat the bushes to try to find tackle depth. Unfortunately, a lot of the guys that they brought in, Riley Reif, Calvin Anderson, have really been battling injuries all year. So they've been scrambling all season long at the tackle position. But, it feels like it's starting to come together a little bit. I'd highlight, to get back to the Colts defense, DeForest Buckner, big presence in the middle of the Colts defensive line. And, I think you've seen some struggles there from Cole Strange in the middle and those, rookies playing in the middle as well. So that could be a real challenge up getting, pressure right on Mac Jones's lap as soon as he drops back.
Yeah, I do think back to that game last year when they played the Colts in Foxborough. I thought Buckner really controlled the game from the inside. I thought he gave Andrews and Strange some trouble. It's not an overly explosive pass rush, though, on the edges. Yeah. We go back, and I agree. What you guys mentioned, I thought the offensive line, it wasn't perfect, but I think the last couple of weeks it's trending in the right direction. They're giving him a little bit more time, and Mac Jones has not necessarily been under siege for the whole game. It hasn't been perfect. I don't think the Colts have those kinds of, this is not the days of Robert Mathis and Dwight Freeney on the edges, It's Kwity Paye. And I think Buckner is the guy to really focus on up front. That's the best guy that they have, and probably on the whole defense, but certainly in the front seven.
Well, let's mention Kenny Moore, too, who had 2 pick-sixes last week. A former Patriot, was briefly in New England as an undrafted rookie, I think back in 2017.
Just don't throw the ball right to him like Bryce Young. Maybe all right.
Bad idea. It's going to end up in 6.
Yeah, I mean, one of them was like on a screen pass that Bryce Young just threw it 5 yards over the guy's head, and Kenny Moore just caught it and ran it back. But Buckner's a good one, I think, because it's a nice little litmus test for Cole Strange and City So. But mainly for me, Cole Strange. Like, Cole Strange got benched in this game last year because of DeForest Buckner. So can he show that he's kind of made that next step? I think we'll find that out a little bit in this game. And this is a Seattle 3, Gus Bradley, cover 3 zone defense. They play more zone defense than any team in the league. So there should be open receivers.
I think that's good for Mac Jones.
Yeah,
I think he's had more success against those kinds of defenses than he has the man-to-man stuff.
Yeah,
I kind of forgot about that game last year. I put that out of my memory.
Well, it's a Sam Ellinger game.
It was really one of the worst
overly,
offensive games I've ever seen.
Yeah, both ways.
Yeah.
Well, Ev, I don't know if you remember, but back when they were playing Seattle in the Super Bowl, I remember Tom Brady and talking about schematically how to defeat that kind of cover 3. I think it was a lot of like crossers and really trying to attack them vertically.
Yeah, so
horizontally.
I don't know how X's and O's we want to get, but
no, you just did that for 2 hours.
But the 2 things that I think you look at, first of all, they played this defense. Seattle and Atlanta both ran this defense in the Super Bowl against the Patriots. James White and Shane Vereen both had huge games in the passing game in both those games. So you can get the running backs matched up against linebackers in space in this defense, and that's where Ramondre Stevenson, I think, is going to be a big factor in this game. I thought he ran routes better last week. I really should have had a huge play on that wheel route if Mac puts it on him, too. So I think statistically he could have had a huge day in the passing game if all had gone well for him. And maybe this is one of those matchups where he does catch a lot of passes coming out of the backfield working against, Shaq Leonard or those linebackers. So I look at that. Crossing routes are always, good against single high defenses, but they play a lot of Mabel coverage. So this is where we're getting into like
on Mabel,
like the real nerdy stuff. But Mabel coverage, you have like the X receiver is going to be locked into man-to-man with the corner, and then it's basically like the NFL's version of like a box and one defense, right? Where like you got this guy, and then we're going to play zone everywhere else. And so those coverages are built to stop the crossing routes because they know that that's what teams are going to try to do against them. So that's how Kenny Moore got Bryce Young. So Bryce Young didn't recognize that it was man-to-man on the backside and thought he could just check it down to the back and just flip it over to the back and check it down.
No.
And it was a pick six.
Okay, so let me ask, does anyone know what the hell he's talking about?
Yes, sir.
Okay,
There we go.
all right,
There
good.
we got one.
We got some X's and O's people. All right.
He's got a Yo Soy Fiesta shirt on. He's a Gronk guy.
Yeah.
He knows football.
We should have brought the whiteboard. I could have.
Yeah.
No one needs that.
So tomorrow we'll be giving our predictions, and we're going to be doing this show from Gibson Club.
Okay.
So we'll give our predictions tomorrow as to what we think is going to happen with the Patriots. But there's a lot of other things to talk about with this team, and one of the great things about working for the Patriots is the Kraft family has always. We've been doing this show, by the way, since 2000. So we've been doing this show for 23 years.
Isn't it the world's original podcast, Fred?
Yeah, it's the.
I've heard that.
And it's the longest running podcast in the world, not just in sports.
Check Wikipedia if you don't believe us.
Yeah. So one of the great things about working for the Patriots is the Kraft's demand that we be honest, that we say what we feel, and as long as it's fair and it's about football and the team, it's okay. So when you listen or watch our show, you're always going to hear what we really feel. This isn't PR spin. So one of the things that people have been talking about, back home is the future of the team and Bill Belichick and Mac Jones. And we talk about that. We all have our own opinions about what we think should happen. But this week there's been a lot of rumors about Bill Belichick, about teams, inquiring into him. I don't know if any of them are true, but it's interesting. In 2 games ago, there was a report that came out before the game about the contract of Bill Belichick, about that he before the season, signed a new contract, multi-year, I think it was phrased. Lucrative multi-year contract. Nobody really knows what that means. Nobody knows if that means 2 years or more. Nobody knows what lucrative means. But for some reason, somebody put that news out there for some reason. And again, we say what we think. We don't have answers, so the opinions that we give up here are our own opinions. They're not anyone else's from the team. So I just want to make sure people know that. But it's my opinion that the team put that info out there just in case another team was interested in Bill Belichick. They would know if you contact him, that's tampering because he is under contract. And if you really are interested, you're going to have to go through the Crafts and no one else because he's under contract. That's just my opinion. But, you know, you guys can agree or disagree.
I really couldn't agree or disagree. I don't have the information that that these reports come from, and I think it's interesting this week you mentioned that Bill has sort of been a little bit more on the hot seat. I think the Boston Globe has gone so far as to say this is a huge game for Bill. If it doesn't go well, then who knows what's going to happen. I don't necessarily fall into that category. I don't see really any scenario that Bill Belichick is not the coach at the end of the season. Now, I don't know what's going to happen next year moving forward, and I think that's more where the uncertainty comes from, but I don't see it ending mid-season. I don't really see what's to be gained by that.
I don't either. I mean, it's a complicated situation because of not only the past, but he's 72 years old. So another team has to realize it's going to take him a little. It's going to take him a little while to get the program up to speed, to get his players in. It's not like he's going to just waltz in and say, I got all the guys I need. This is the team I want, and we're going to war. I mean, we know what kind of changes they made. Paul, you were here, and Fred, in 2000 when he got here, and they didn't even have enough players to field 53 guys on the team. So it's a complicated situation. I mean, I agree with Paul. I think this coach has been here. He's going to be here through the rest of this season. But it is interesting just going into the bye week off of this game because if it isn't Bill, what changes do you make if they were to be 2-8 at that point?
Yeah, so what's really sort of interested me, Freddie, when listening to all of the stuff is, listening to the fans and people that are really passionate about the team. It used to be like 99% or more just all on Belichick's side. And now I feel like it's been really interesting to see that line switch a little bit. And people are, getting impatient. They're upset with the fact that it's been 4 years now post Tom Brady where the team doesn't seem to be back on track. And I think a lot of people are looking at Bill Belichick. And I'm not surprised by it because obviously the results are what they are. But it has been eye-opening to see how quickly that evolved. And you would think a guy who won 6 Super Bowls, obviously that's the reason why he's here, right? I mean, his track record puts him in line to be the best coach that's ever done it. So I think it's not an easy situation for the Crafts and for us and for the team, trying to figure out exactly how to go when the season's over. But at 2-7, you got half a season left to sort of right the ship a little bit and at least get things going back in the right direction.
Yeah, I just feel like mid-season, there has to be some sort of respect level for what he's accomplished here.
Agreed.
And Tom Brady,
Fred's the one. He'll be the one to give him the respect.
I agree. And I've been, people that listen to the show, regularly know that I have a lot of issues with Bill the coach right now and Bill the GM. But when you look at it at the end of the season, it didn't end with Brady the way I think anybody really would have wanted it to end. And it took a couple of years for that relationship to get to the point where it is now, where he's coming week 1 and they have the event in June and things like that. You don't want that same sort of ill will with Bill Belichick. This is somebody that we want to be a part of the Patriots organization, of the Patriots history. We want Bill to come back for retirement ceremonies and for Patriots Hall of Fame inductions and obviously Pro Football Hall of Fame inductions and all that kind of stuff. And that's embarrassing to get fired mid-season. That is a huge...
You can't do that to him.
No, and I think he's earned it. I think he's earned the right to at least end it amicably in the right way. And I also think he's earned not getting fired on Black Monday. I don't think you fire him week 18, the day after the season ends, and like all these other coaches, unfortunately, are all going to get canned. We'll wake up Monday morning and 6 coaches will have been fired. Like, I think that you have to handle this situation differently than those types of things. That
said, let's say things don't get better this season and the Patriots end up only winning the 2 games that they have, or 3 maybe, and they've got this really high draft pick, and they have the opportunity to pick one of the best quarterbacks in the draft, and we'll get into Mac Jones in a little bit. But, it's my opinion that if you're drafting for the Patriots and the quarterback that you really love becomes available, you got to get him. It's really hard to get great quarterbacks in this league, so you have to pick that quarterback. And if you do, don't you want a head coach to be with that quarterback for the long term? You want the coach and the quarterback to go into the future together. And even if you love Bill Belichick, like Mike said, he's 72. How much longer is he going to be here? You're hoping that the quarterback that you choose, if he's a top quarterback, is going to be here for 10 years, 10 plus years. So it's a little bit of a catch-22, not to steal your show's name,
hey.
But what do you do if you have the opportunity to get that young quarterback? Do you want a young coach, one of those new offensive-minded coaches that are doing so well around the league? Do you want him to come in at the same time so that they can grow together? It makes
it complicated.
It's a real issue. It's a real issue.
Yeah, and to that point too, do you trust Bill, based off of what he did with Mac Jones, to build around Drake May or build around Caleb Williams? Or, and I think that's where I think most people's biggest issues back home with Belichick is actually more the GM side of things and the talent on the roster, especially on the offensive side of the ball. If you draft another quarterback and you give him the same, supporting cast that Mac has gotten, why would we think that that's going to go significantly differently? Like, obviously, maybe that quarterback's better than Mac, and he makes it look a little bit better. But if it's 3 offensive coordinators in 3 years and really no number 1 receiver and the offensive line's in shambles, is that rookie what's he going to do?
Yeah.
He's going to look at it the same way that Mac does. So I think that that's a big thing for me too, is like philosophically, is Bill going to pay T. Higgins $25 million next year so that Drake May has somebody to throw to? Or is he going to look at it the same way and sign Nelson Aguilar and Kendrick Bourne? You know?
I love how Evan just maps it all out, like hypothetically, like, is Drake May going to be able to throw the ball to T. Higgins? And are they going to,
Well, Paul, because Drake May is going to throw the ball to T. Higgins, all right? And then Pop Douglas is going to be the number 2 in the slot.
Oh, there we go.
And we're going back to the Super Bowl. That's the way I'm seeing it.
I'm here for that part
I
of
like
it.
it. What
I'm here for that part.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right.
I just fixed it. Boom. Mic drop.
So who's coaching that?
Exactly. I mean, that's exactly the problem. And I also look at Bill O'Brien and know that he's an ambitious guy, and we've already heard some rumors connecting him to some college jobs already this season. Mm-hmm. So if it's the same carousel. Like if he goes ahead and he leaves after 1 year with the rookie quarterback, just like Josh McDaniels did in 2022. You're right back to where you were in year 2 with Mac, where you have another coordinator, and it's just the same thing. So you have to get out of that cycle somehow.
Yeah. So we mentioned Mac Jones during the course of this latest discussion, and now he's in his 3rd year. And last year was a disaster because they had a defensive coordinator who had never been an offensive coordinator as also his head coach, his quarterback's coach. And it didn't work out. Oh, actually, I'm sorry. Joe Judge was his quarterback, who was a special teams coach. So they had 2 coaches in places who had never done what they were being asked to do last year, and they were doing it with a young quarterback, and it didn't work out. So everybody was hoping that this 3rd year, you bring in Bill O'Brien, who that's all he's done really, is either been a head coach or an offensive coordinator, and things were going to get a lot better. Yeah. And they really haven't. You all know. And a lot of talk back home is, okay, where does the blame fall? Is it just Mac, or is it the fact that the offensive line hasn't played well, that he doesn't have a top-flight receiver, he's now going on his 3rd coordinator? It's a tough position for Mac, for sure. But you have to admit, there's been problems.
Well, and that's why a lot of these things, I think, are complicated because there's so many different ways of looking at it, and I think there's a lot of people that are fiercely loyal to Bill Belichick for all the games that he's won. So some of those people look at Mac Jones and say he's not good enough. And then there's people that look at some of the things that Bill has done with Mac, like Evan pointed out, and they wonder, well, Mac needs more support. And then they look at the offensive line. They had an opportunity. They had a hole at tackle, and they didn't take one. And now you spent the better part of the first 9 games giving up a lot of quarterback pressure. And Mac doesn't have a chance. And so every time, no matter who you talk to, someone has a different opinion as to what the biggest problem is, which is how you get to 2-7, because it's never that simple.
Yeah.
There are a lot of things that are lacking.
It's like a chicken or the egg theory, and that's what we've kind of been doing. Of course, we're here before the bye week trying to get to the bottom of all their problems and figure out who the coach is going to be and who they're going to draft. But, specific to Mac, I mean, it's just, like you said, Fred, I thought when Bill O'Brien came in, and even when we met Bill O'Brien for the first time this spring, and he came in and had a media availability, and it was like, wow, it feels like there's like an adult in the building. Like there's a guy who knows offense and knows what he wants. And that moment, you were excited and felt like, all right, he can really turn things around. And I think we've gotten to this point in the season where it feels like Mac is really struggling to stay in sync with the offense. And, it's certainly, he doesn't have a lot around him, but I don't think he's, as we said, we talked a little bit about C.J. Stroud here and what he was able to do last week. And it's, a one-off kind of example, and it's hard to compare that one guy had a great game and, pulled out an upset. But it's hard as a Patriots fan to see what he did and said, well, he's not really working with all that much. How's he able to do that? So I don't know if we're going to get the answer this year, but it's around and around we go.
Yeah, I mean, Mac has to take some of the blame or some of the fall for it, because especially the last couple weeks, since they moved Onwenu to right tackle, the line play has been okay. Has it been? They're not, the 1990s Cowboys, but like they're protecting the quarterback, and he's not under siege all the time. And there's plays to be made on the tape where there's open receivers and he's just not seeing them, or the timing of the play is off, or sometimes like against the Commanders, he's just flat out missing the throws. Tyquan Thornton on 4th down is open and he just misses the throw. Ramondre on the wheel route open and he underthrows him. So those plays are there to be made. I think some of the things that have been talked about back home about his post-game press conference, and how he was saying he kind of agreed with a question that said that he doesn't exactly have an all-star cast around him. What I look at that more is, if some people are trying to make that out to be this shot, which it might have been, but I also look at it and I'm like, I think he believes that, which is infecting his play. Like if he just handled what he could handle and controlled what he could control, I think the biggest thing, like watching him play, he's really sped up, like his decision making and stuff like that, and he looks frantic when he's playing. If I was Bill O'Brien, I would just be like, just calm down, like just settle down, like take a breath, collect yourself, play slower, play within the confines of the scheme, and like don't think about all these other variables of, there's pressure here, and my feet are here, and the receiver is not exactly as open as I thought he would be, or whatever. Just run the plays that are being called and control your own process, and I think there would be better results, because I do think there are opportunities for him to make some plays.
Yeah, and I think it's been interesting listening to Bill O'Brien a little bit. He talked on Tuesday, and not openly critical, but some references to plays that Evan's talking about that are being missed. And I know everybody, went in with the assumption that Bill O'Brien would fix everything, and I think now people are wondering, well, what's Bill O'Brien doing? Like, why does the offense look just as bad as it did last year? And I think some of these comments that you're hearing are like, no, we need to everybody. We all need to do better. There are opportunities to make plays, and we're missing them. I thought with that reference to the Tyquan Thornton play that you're talking about on 4th down that Billy O made the other day was eye-opening to me. And then, you start hearing some of the other shows with our buddy Burt Breer, talking about people in the building mentioning some of these opportunities missed. That's the question I keep coming back to, Paul, is just what would happen if Mac hits the opportunities that are there for him? Like, what does that look like? And, I still am kind of waiting for that game, because, there's plenty of videos going around of the last couple games, and, like you guys mentioned, some of those shots that were there, but, can he hit those? And all of a sudden, maybe he starts to get some confidence. He slows down a little bit. His footwork gets back on track, and, maybe then there is something there. They start to win a few games, and then we're not really talking about, hey, let's get Drake May and Caleb, but we can build around that. And you talk about, Evan said, he looks sped up.
Yeah.
And I think of that wheel route to Stevenson where I thought the pocket was decent.
Yeah.
And he still kind of faded away from the throw and threw off his back foot. The ball floated a little bit. That's the play the Washington linebacker sort of the last second got his hand up and knocked the ball. But if the pass is sort of to the outside or over the top of the shoulder, I don't think the linebacker can do anything about it.
75-yard touchdown.
And I do think, and you mentioned, all the running back stuff against the Colts specifically, against the Seattle, cover 3.
Yeah.
And I do think that Stevenson has been a bigger part of the passing game the last couple of games.
Yeah.
And it looks
he
like
looked really good
they're making an
last
effort
game.
for that. And even going back to the Buffalo game where he made the big play with the screen at the end of the game. So I'd look for Stevenson on Sunday, maybe more as a receiver.
Yeah, he made some really good, ran some really good routes. I think that, Jermaine Davis, the linebacker for the Commanders, it's kind of like more like a Jawan Bentley run enforcer type, and they kind of targeted him a little bit in the passing game. And Ramondre Stevenson was open a lot in that game, and they did make some plays, third down plays, things like that, other than the wheel route. But the wheel route is just one of those things that there is a little bit of pressure that's coming up through the middle, and as an NFL quarterback, you just got to stand in there and step into the throw and take the hit. That's
that was
what
the first
it is.
play of the 2-minute drill too at the end of the game, right?
Yeah.
It was like a little skinny post almost to him kind of just jamming out of the backfield.
Yeah, that's what an NFL pocket is. It's not always going to just be this perfectly clean pocket. Sometimes it's going to be a little muddy. There's going to be some people around you, and you have to be able to just calmly stand in there and make throws. And I think sometimes we see with Mac that he doesn't do that as often as he should.
So our team has a lot of work to do. But the one thing that we can all, feel good about is that the Crafts want to win more than we do. So they know, and they're not going to sit still. They're going to do whatever they think they need to do to get the Patriots back to the winning ways that we've been used to. So that's one thing that we can all hang our hat on, is that the Crafts want to win more than we do. Another thing we do on this show is we take emails and we take calls. People around the world can call us at 855-PATS-500. That's our phone number. So phone lines are open if people want to call. If you want to email the show, it's webradio@patriots.com. We've got emails coming in now. One is from Chad in Atlanta, Georgia. He says, can we acknowledge the cojones on the media member who asked Bill if his job was in jeopardy? You couldn't pay me to ask that. I'd be afraid he'd make me run laps. Question, what could Bill do, if anything, to save his job at this point if it's in danger?
Win games. They got to, produce points and win games. I think that's the direct
The
route.
second part of that, I think, is big. Get Mac Jones looking
right,
more comfortable.
Score 30 points against the Colts, and, you're going to all of a sudden, Fred, they put Mike Vrabel into the Hall of Fame a couple weeks ago, and you saw, I think, the Bill that we all wish we saw more of, which was the talkative, funny, storytelling Bill. And it was just for me a little bit of a reminder of, what a person who's seen so much, who knows so much about the game. But I think it's a simple answer, and that's score points, win games, and starting this week, it'd be great. Come here to Frankfurt, reset a little bit. Got a great international fan base that's coming out to support the team, some renewed energy, and then you go home and all right, maybe we found something there in Frankfurt. And look, it might be too far gone at this point. They're 2-7. I'm not saying they're going to make the playoffs, and I know there are plenty of fans out there that want to lose every game and get that number 1 overall pick and get that quarterback. But I still think that there's some positivity could be had.
In my opinion, winning is the obvious answer. But the other thing is to keep the locker room together. We talked about the Jack Jones thing and J.C. Jackson, and we don't know what happened, but there was some disciplinary stuff going on. And that's the type of thing that happens to teams that aren't doing well.
Yep.
Guys start, getting off the program, and they start doing their own thing, and they stop listening. And, back in the day, I'm not saying that didn't happen when the Patriots were winning Super Bowls, but you had locker room leaders that would, as Evan said, they police themselves. Bill Belichick didn't have to go into the locker room on Wednesday and rip everyone a new one because he had his players that would do that for him.
That guy Teddy Bruschi right behind you on that monitor just popped up in an old Patriots Colts classic.
Teddy Bruschi,
Vince Wilfork was
Willie
here
McGinnis,
earlier, so.
Rodney Harrison, go down the line.
I got it.
Yep.
They ain't got it.
These guys, and so you wonder, we know that Matthew Slater is the leader, but he's a special teams guy. He doesn't even really practice with the team. He does his own thing. So no disrespect. No disrespect to Matthew Slater, but who are those guys that is going to grab a teammate by the grill and tell them, hey, let's get it together? Yeah. And, that's one of the things that I think Bill needs to do right now is make sure that locker room finishes strong down the stretch.
Yeah, I agree, Freddie, and that is why when Mike said the second part of it, like getting the offense, if his job isn't, and we don't know, we just don't, but if his job is in fact sort of in jeopardy, then that's the way to do it. Show that you still have firm control of the locker, that everybody is still willing to follow you, and put together. We all looked at the Buffalo game a couple of weeks ago, and that was so refreshing because it was a change to the narrative.
Yep.
It was pretty productive offense for 60 minutes. It was a last-second drive, come from behind. Things we hadn't really seen a lot of since who left.
Yep.
And all of a sudden there was some hope. Well, I don't want to upset Deuce. So
Mike doesn't like Tom Brady.
Mike doesn't like Tom
I'm
Brady.
only kidding.
It's sort of a shtick at this point.
No,
but,
it's true.
But Mike got bored of going 12-4 every year and winning going to the AFC Championship.
You just got to embrace it.
Yeah, just embrace the heel.
He was okay.
The heel turn. I like it. So I do think that's how it goes, Freddie. What you said, keep control of the locker room, and maybe we have a different conversation when it's over.
Yeah, that was Dakota Randall from Nesson, by the way, that asked Bill that question. And you wouldn't be paying me anymore if I asked that question.
Right.
So I might ask it in my head, but I wouldn't ask it out
Well,
loud.
maybe we can split whatever he's making.
Mike in Charlotte, North Carolina writes in, I don't believe that Bill all of a sudden forgot how to coach. I believe the bigger issue is on the GM side and not acquiring the correct players either through the draft or free agency. I think the Kraft's easiest way to move on is to tell Bill we're hiring a GM and they want Bill to focus on coaching. If Bill doesn't want to give up the GM role and leaves the team, then the Krafts can start over with a new GM and coaching staff without firing Bill. They will be able to publicly say that they made an effort to retain him.
Yeah, I mean, just to highlight the draft, that's kind of my thing, and it's they haven't got the return on investment in their recent draft picks, and I think it's a big reason why they don't have the talent to kind of compete with those upper echelon teams right now. Is you haven't hit on enough of those first round draft picks that they've needed to, and recent years you've had Mac, you've had some promise, but just not enough of those A+ elite kind of guys that can really change the tenor of a game at any second. Any given play can all of a sudden go for 90 yards and you're in the end zone.
All right, we're going to give this a try. We have people calling the show as well. We call it the Ace Ticket Hotline.
Not on line 3.
Yeah, we've got Harvey from Columbus, Ohio. Let's see. Harvey, can you hear us? All right.
Yeah.
What do you got?
Let's get Miles Bryant out. Is that what he said?
Miles Bryant.
Okay. All right. Thanks, Harvey. I was having trouble hearing him.
Okay, so he's coming at Miles Bryant.
Okay,
It's
all right.
an easy target.
Get Miles Bryant out of there.
Okay,
That's
so
how it started, right?
There's two things about Miles Bryant. It's obvious that they could have a better player than Miles Bryant in such a full-time regular role. But we just talked about two guys in J.C. Jackson and Jack Jones that reportedly got benched for disciplinary reasons off the field. You want to say anything you can about Miles Bryant gives an F. Like, Miles Bryant's there every single day. Miles Bryant works hard. Miles Bryant plays hard. He answers questions to the media. He doesn't run out of the locker room after the game when he plays poorly and refuses to talk. So you can say what you want about his talent level and the fact that maybe they do need to upgrade that spot from that point of view. But you can't have guys that are just, skipping out on things and not making curfew and things like that and then come after Miles Bryant. Like, that's just an unfair target in my opinion.
It's tough too with how shorthanded they've been, and I think he's been kind of thrust into some positions that's not maybe his ideal, fit. But I have to say, like, I totally rubber stamp everything Evan said. I think Miles Bryant's a tough player. I think he's a little bit underrated. If they were able to use him with, if you still had Christian Gonzalez and Jonathan Jones is healthy, and I think Miles Bryant is a piece. Maybe you don't want to be relying on him as one of your top one or two corners, but he's just one of those guys on the team right now that's become one of the targets.
Yeah.
Let's see. Alex is in Raleigh, North Carolina, and he says, y'all got some good lighting there.
That's right.
This is a great opening and great show so far. Fred looking good in the kit. See, some people like it.
I told you, you had your kid on. I said that.
Question. Is this a
use the
game
lingo.
where Barmore needs to make a great impact? He's
here we
been
go.
doing well, putting pressure on the line and QB, but can he do more?
I don't know how you can do
Evan-
more.
Evan-
He's played well.
That's my
Yes.
guy. Yeah.
Well, it's coming back on, and Paul, you love him too. I mean,
I
it's-
have a crush on him.
Patriots
Yeah, I do.
traded up to get him in 2021. I mean, just, I think we all saw the potential in him as a disruptive pass rush guy. We talked a little bit about DeForest Buckner, maybe not as big as him, but when we had Tom Brady, that's how you got Tom Brady, right? Pressure up the middle, quick, right in his lap, and I think that Barmore is just such a useful piece. The problem's been that they ask a lot of defensive linemen in New England. They want them to two-gap. They want them to be able to play the run. And I think there's been some inconsistencies, in his game. So, but the last few games have been great.
Yeah, for the last month, Christian Barmore ranked second in the league in pressures amongst defensive tackles. He's been one of the best D tackles in the NFL for about a month now. He's playing out of his mind. He had 8 quarterback pressures in the game last week against Washington.
Yeah, we had Vince Wilfork was here earlier today, and they're not the same player. I mean, obviously Vince was much bigger, in terms of just bulk. But I think athletically, that's the kind of player that Barmore is. He's a little bit of a more athletic interior defensive lineman, and you're starting to see some of that show up on 8 pressures he had. I didn't realize that number. He's been really, really good now for the last several games.
Yeah, and he's also been really good against the run. Like, it's not just been the pass rush, because we obviously always known, I feel like, that he can rush the passer. His rookie year, I think he had like 60 quarterback pressures, and one of the better rookie seasons for an interior rusher. But now that he's adding the rush defense to it as well, now he's a 3-down player. Like, you're talking about a guy that can be a 60 to 65% guy.
Yeah. So, people talk about, who are the Patriots going to build around for the future? I think Christian Barmore is one of those guys that they should.
Yes.
I think Keon White, a guy that they drafted this year, has shown promise. Obviously, Christian Gonzalez, their first-round pick this year, he got hurt, and he's not playing anymore this season, but he showed that he can really stick with some of the best receivers in the game. So that's promising as well. So there's some defensive pieces that they have. Maybe they re-signed Duggar, who's going to be a free agent at the end of the season.
Need to re-sign.
Yeah. So there's some pieces on defense that they can build around. So, the future is not all, crazy.
And Pop Douglas, too, rookie Demario Douglas. I mean, he's, had his best game, most productive game last week. And I think we all look at Pop Douglas and say, like, this is a Patriots receiver. This is a little quick jitterbug guy that can get open off the line. And, it would seem on paper that that's what Mac needs. A guy that he trusts. Love to see Mac just continuing to go to him in big spots, but there are some bones here with this team. No matter what kind of happens this offseason, there are some guys, and Gonzalez was outstanding. What did we see him, like 9 quarters? I don't know exactly what the number was, but not enough, and he really promising for his second season, hopefully.
Okay, where's our DJ? Because I was going to take a break and pump up the music, but he's not here, so I'll have to wait till he gets back.
Do you want me to sing?
No, you can do. Yeah, Paul can sing.
Do some karaoke.
Well, hey, Paul, real quick, there was someone here in a Drew Bledsoe jersey, and God bless that person. I think they might have left, but Paul's favorite player of all time. I thought Drew made the trip for you, Paul, just to come and support you, but I'm not sure where that fan went. So.
All right. Russell in Arkansas writes in, would you dial up the pressure on this Colts offense and maybe rattle Minshew? Also, can we get Paul a Diet Miller and Fred a different shirt?
Oh, they really don't like your shirt.
They don't like it. No.
No.
But,
They've been blitzing a lot.
but
They've been
I thought
blitzing
Bayern
more.
Munich was a good team. Are they not good?
Well, no,
They're good, right?
You're going to ignite rivalries right within this very room.
They
right?
win it every year, right? Yeah, so they're good.
Yeah.
All right.
I'm trying to I'd love to have someone explain. Like, are you wearing like a Jets jersey?
No, he's wearing a Patriots
Are you wearing a
jersey.
Patriot? But are we in Jets land? Like what's the?
No, we're in
equivalent?
Eintracht land, right? Frankfurt Eintracht, right? Yeah, okay. But they haven't given me a shirt, so I'm wearing Bayern Munich shirt. Maybe tomorrow. Yeah. What is that? All right. So as far as dialing up the pressure, I mean, would you go all out, or would you,
They've blitzed a ton this season. Almost
More
every
than
game,
usual.
they're very high in the blitz usage.
Yep.
It's funny. Sorry,
Hasn't been overly effective lately, anyway.
Yeah, and even just looking at some of the numbers on next gen stats, it's like it wasn't even like a correlation between Judon going down and they just we got to start blitzing. Like they were kind of blitzing a lot even when they had Judon. So it's a little bit of I feel like a shift in aggressiveness from this defense. Historically, especially when Matt Patricia was here, it was a sit back, wait for you to kind of make the mistakes and take away the big plays. But they've been trying to get after quarterbacks, and I mean it worked against Josh Allen. That was the game where where, hey, they got a bunch of pressure on him, they got right in on him. One way or another, you got to get pressure and try to force Gardner Minshew into mistakes.
Yeah. I think that the blitzing the last couple of weeks hasn't worked because they haven't been able to tie it together with coverage.
Yeah.
So they blitzed Gardner Minshew, for example, on that crazy cross-body throw that he made to Byron Pringle. They blitzed, but they busted the coverage on the back end.
You're talking about the Washington game.
Yeah. And I say Gardner Minshew?
Yeah.
Sam Howell and they busted the coverage. So if you don't tie it together, then it's not, if you don't have pressure, like on the Miles Bryant touchdown, and I'm sure is what the caller called it and attacked poor Miles. When on that touchdown, they didn't get any pressure. They blitzed, but they didn't get it. No one got home. And if you blitz and nobody gets home, well, then you're in trouble, right? That's a recipe for disaster. So if they're going to blitz, it's going to have to be more tied together from the back end and the front end, because you can't cover zero blitz and send the house and then not get home. Like, that's just asking for trouble.
All right. Let's see. Boston Cream writes in.
Oh, there's our guy.
He wants to know how big the schnitzel is.
Paul, you had a
sizable.
schnitzel?
I had some yesterday.
Yeah?
Yeah, it was pretty big.
Look good.
Okay.
We had some worst.
Verst.
Is that what we had? I'm learning the language.
Yeah?
What else did we do? And then me and Paul kind of chickened out, went to Five Guys.
Yeah,
today.
you guys went to Five Guys, which is just hilarious.
You gave us up.
I know. I feel bad being in another country and you want to try the food and everything, but it was like, all right, I just need
Ugly
a
Americans.
little taste of home. Let's pump me full.
Well,
of
I really
Five
want
Guys.
like a good brat, before we go home. So maybe these guys can help me with some recommendations of where we should go.
Okay.
There we go.
Let's see. Chris from Colorado writes in, as fair and balanced arbiters of our football sanity, have you guys made up your mind as to what needs to happen next season? I'm looking for your personal opinion. Is it a new coach, new quarterback, full reboot? My guess would be that Paul needs to see more. Evan has a spreadsheet on which players should be drafted and acquired. Mike
True.
will move his hatred for Tom Brady and move it to Bill. And Fred will whistle through the graveyard. Love everything you guys do. Thanks for putting in the time, effort, and jet lag to keep us entertained. So that's nice.
I mean, if
The
I'm
spreadsheet
answering-
is being created.
Yeah,
That's definitely
I have
true.
no doubt.
Yeah.
But if I'm being completely honest, I'd like to sort of lean toward the reboot. I'd like to try to turn the page and start over.
I mean, it takes a lot of courage to say that. I'm the same. I mean,
Not really.
Look, I just think for me, I'm kind of sick of watching the same games over and over for the last couple of years, and that's been, they just can't seem to break this rut where, even last year, and I don't know what the stats are, but we talk about, they've won some games, but it's always against backup quarterbacks. Like,
Well, we got one this week.
The win
so-
from Buffalo, the win from Buffalo that stood out for a couple weeks ago, and I think we all felt really positive because, like you said, Paul, it flipped the script. But even if you want to throw in that 2020 season with Cam Newton, which I think we all kind of allow as, look, it was the COVID year, there were no fans, it was Cam on
And
coming
plus
in
you
July.
ran Brady out of town. So,
That's not true. But I just that's what's just getting repetitive is watching the same kind of game unfold where they're up. They're down 17-3 at halftime, and and then they make a couple scores in the third quarter, and they lose 24-13. But it's just that
And I don't know how you
gotta
guys
break that
feel.
cycle.
I've gotten to the point where I can't have them both back.
Yeah.
If Max stays, then I think Bill has to go. Now, if you want to say, I'm going to err on the side of letting Bill go out on his terms because of all he's done, I'd support that. I mean, I think there's a good argument to be made. Why are you pulling the plug on the greatest coach who's ever done it? So if that happens, I think you have to change the quarterback because I don't think those two guys work together.
Yeah.
And I haven't seen any evidence of that the last 2 years. As a rookie, there was some promise there with Josh McDaniels running the show. And again, like Mike said, beating up on some banged-up backup quarterback-led teams. And since then, we haven't seen any progress. I don't like the way it looks, for lack of a better term, the way, Bill doesn't often call Mac Jones the quarterback and my starter when he's asked about it. So I don't think it's a great relationship from afar. And I feel like if you're going to move forward with one of them, the other one has to go.
Yeah.
Okay,
I just look at it from like a big picture standpoint too of like this organizationally, they need to decide that scoring points in offense is the most important thing for this team. And if that means changing the quarterback, that means changing the quarterback. If that means changing the head coach too, then so be it.
Right.
But until they go out and they start really throwing some real resources at the offense side of the ball, pay guys top of the market money, first round picks on skill talent or tackles or whatever, it's all well and good that Bill had his defense draft last year, but they had a pretty good defense in 2022, and he goes out and uses his top 3 draft picks on defense. And then in free agency, he paid everybody on defense to come back and play, for them this year. And the offense got what? Juju, Mike Gesicki. And thankfully, they found Pop Douglas in the 6th round, and they got one little thing out of it. But really, you look at last offseason for the offensive side of the ball, and it was a complete disaster, honestly.
Let's go to the phones. Ace Ticket Hotline. We'll go to Ernie in Tennessee. What's up, Ernie?
Yeah, I listening to you guys about Bill. I'm in agreement with not firing him during the season. I think the national media has him, out if they don't win the game, but I don't see that. I just think he just was kind of hard on the media, and they're just trying to get back at him.
Okay, so you're not for firing him during the season, but what do you want to do after the season?
I think the call is right. Just give him an option. Coach and hire a GM and go that way.
All right. Thanks, Ernie. Appreciate the call.
Big Ernie.
It's not going to happen.
I don't like. How do you guys feel about that setup?
It's not going to work.
I think it's dysfunctional.
I also just feel we have to look at the product on the field at some point and say, are they even being coached well at this point? Like the game against the Commanders, they didn't lose that game because they didn't have enough talent to win the game. They lost that game because special teams had 4 penalties in the last 3 drives of the game. The defense has given up 6 plays of 20-plus yards because they're busting coverages all over the place. Those are the Bills' 2 areas, special teams and defense, and they're not even buttoned up in those areas. So I just don't even know if that's enough, is to just take away GM duties. I think everybody just thinks let's get a GM in here that drafts all this amazing talent, like it's that easy, and it's just going to fix all of these problems.
It's never going to fly. It's never going to fly with Bill,
Yep. Mike is off.
Yeah, Mike might be done.
Dominique is in New York. What's up, Dominique?
Wilkins?
Hey, how y'all doing?
All right.
Good. Hope you're enjoying Germany. Thanks for all that you do. Just kind of going back to the point with Bill Belichick in his position or what it looks like after the season. I agree. I don't know how that looks. I mean, him as a GM, I don't know if we really want that. Looking at the picks that he's made, the signings that he had influence over. I don't know if that works. When coaching, are you really going to have someone that's going to come in and quarter support him, and would he allow that to happen? So it's kind of a no man's land with where Bill's going to be. At this point, the season is what it is. Fine, but you don't. It to me not really going to make much of a difference. I think we've seen what we've seen, and we can just hope for a high draft pick. But I would add, putting yourself in the shoes as a GM and assuming that you aren't getting Caleb Williams or Drake May, who would you start your franchise with next year? What coaching change would you make, and who would you actually maybe, assuming Bill leaves, identify as a coach? And I'll take that offline.
Okay, thanks, Dominique. Yeah. So, head coaching names. Who are we talking about?
Gerard
Mayo.
Has to be.
Okay, he's in the house, but that goes counter to what you're saying with the offense.
I don't want that.
Yeah.
I like Gerard Mayo a lot for 2 reasons. One, I think defensively they still have a really good system, and that keeps that side of the ball in place, where you have a defense that has been successful and you can keep that together, keep building with what they've done on that side of the ball. Because I think Paul and I might disagree on this a little bit, but I don't think the defense has been the problem.
The problem
for 3 years. Are they as good as maybe they could be, or whatever, maybe not? But I like Gerard Mayo a lot. I think that some of the things that you hear talk about Mayo too is that he is pretty into some of the new way of thinking about building a football team and analytically and things like that. And although he wouldn't be the offensive coach necessarily to tie it all together, ideally, I think you would have somebody that would prioritize offense and see the importance of offense in today's game, because I think he sees it a little bit differently in that respect than Bill.
Yeah, I mean, you could sell me on it if you can give him a strong young mind offensively. Strong offensive coordinator to come in and sort of change the way they do it. Because I get back to what Mike and Evan were talking about earlier in the show about they need to find the importance of scoring points and prioritizing scoring to get, I think, to where the league is nowadays. And I think that, most games are won. The good teams are going to win by getting upwards of 30 points. And, you look at the Super Bowl between two really good teams and really balanced teams, but it becomes a shootout because that's what the talent is going to lend itself to once you get into those spots. And the talent's going to win out. And if you can't win that way, you're going to be held short. So I worry. I mean, I don't know exactly. I don't have the name. I don't have a Rolodex of all
yes,
the.
Yes, you do. You just described Ben Johnson.
Well, Ben Johnson's the guy I want, but I understand that he might not be available. He might not just. You can't just wave a magic wand and get whatever the guy. Ben Johnson's the guy that I've had my eye on.
Yeah.
A little bit. I could be sold on Eric Bieniemy. I don't think that's a tremendously talented roster that Washington has, and they found a way to be pretty competitive offensively every week. First year, running the show there with that group of players. I could be. That's what I want is an offensive guy.
Okay.
I'm going to try to talk here, and my mic.
I don't think we
Mike,
have you.
you've been silenced.
You're just off the show.
Mark in Elm Street says
Marine Corps. We have an emergency.
He's heading to major dental surgery, but he's not going to take his headphones off. He says he's 55. Bill's the best I've ever seen, but he's 72 and tired of the non-football stuff, and it's starting to show. So, and he gives one example, Jacoby Myers, getting rid of Jacoby Myers.
Yeah, I understand what he's talking about. He felt like, I think he's ascribing that whole theory that Jacoby Myers was one of those guys that sort of spoke out against the coaches last year in defense of Mac. I thought what Jacoby Myers did that night was what a leader does and what a good teammate does. I don't like the way that whole quarterback situation against Chicago unfolded with Mac Jones clearly not 100% healthy, not playing well, get taken out of the game, the crowd's reacting, the crowd's rooting for Zappe, and I think Jacoby Myers felt like that was not fair to Mac Jones, and he said so. Yeah. And a lot of people believe that that's the main reason why Jacoby Myers is now with the Raiders. And if that's true, again, we have a lot of speculation on some of these things, but if that's true, I would agree. That's the kind of stuff that maybe used to work 20 years ago, but it's a little harder when you don't have a quarterback that's going to make it all.
All right, we're going to take a break. Good time for everybody to hydrate. When we come back.
Is that an option for us?
Yeah, we'll have more calls, more emails. Maybe we'll even take some questions from the crowd right here on Patriots Unfiltered. All right, welcome back to Patriots Unfiltered. 855-PATS-500 is the Ace Ticket hotline. Web radio at patriots.com is the email address. And we're welcoming Tamara Brown to the set right now. Tamara is a part of our show back home. Tamara is, explain what you do with the Patriots.
I do a lot. I can't hear myself, but hopefully you guys can hear me.
We can hear you.
I'm a reporter, a content producer, help with social media. I do a little bit of everything. Other duties as assigned. Whatever my team needs, I'm happy to help with. But I've done a lot. Writing, everything.
So you've been listening to the conversation.
Yeah.
What's your opinion on everything that we've been talking about?
Okay. Wow. Put me on the spot. So I think, first of all, I agree with not firing Bill Belichick midseason. I think that his resume speaks for itself. He's done great things for this program, and I think that when it comes to what to do with him for next year, I agree that there needs to be a clean slate. Fresh head coach, a new quarterback would be great, and getting him some weapons, I think that that's the best way to move forward. I think whether it's Mac Jones going to a new program or not, I don't think that he has room here on this team. I think he's too broken, honestly, right now. I think he deserves a fresh start like Trey Lance.
Okay. And while you've been here in Germany, what have you been doing? I see, if you don't already, you need to follow all the Patriots social media accounts, Instagram, X, Facebook, TikTok, and I know you've been all over. I know you've been all over it over the last couple days. What have you been doing?
So, Fred, you're actually going to laugh. So, listening to that intro coming in from break where they were talking about McDonald's, Alex and I and Matisse went to McDonald's because we're like, we have to see what McDonald's is like in Germany. And as we're coming out, Jason McCourty, former Patriot, he sees us and he's like, "Are you kidding me? You guys went to McDonald's? You're in Germany."
I don't blame him.
But the menu was different. There were curly fries at McDonald's. Can you believe it?
Okay.
Curly fries.
Curly fries.
They had a whole different menu. So we went to McDonald's. We have been around town. We went to. It starts with an R. Can you pronounce it?
No, I can't. I don't know.
Like Yannick pronounced it multiple times,
Yannick!
but it was the Rambra, I think. Am I saying it right? Can't remember, but it was a beautiful square. We got a lot of great pictures. We shot Patriots All Access there. It's been great going around town. The Galleria, all the shopping, we went around there as well. So we've been getting our rounds, getting our steps in.
Okay.
Five
All
Guys
right.
menu is exactly the same for what it's worth.
Did it
All
taste
of
the
that.
same?
Yeah, pretty much.
All right. Again, 855-PATS-500 is the Ace Ticket Hotline. Tamara's going to stick with us here. So if you have any particular questions for her, because she's just joining us now, let's get back to the phones. We'll go to Patty in Agawam. What's up, Patty? If my fingers can press this button. There we go. What's up, Patty?
Guten Morgen, mein deutschen Bruder und Schwestern. Und Prost.
Hey, Patty.
Are you
How's
Russian or
everyone doing
German?
today?
I don't know.
I was German.
Okay. Anyway, no
my
one. By the way, Patty, here, no one's here laughing. Not one person.
It's all right. I was
Tough
just
crowd.
born into my German brothers and sisters, and hello to you guys and cheers.
Okay.
My question for you guys for the panel today is, with this depleted wide receiver core, can we make plays in the passing game against the Colts defense?
Against the Colts.
Yeah.
Okay. Thanks for the call.
I think it's a good question because I talked about Kenny Moore earlier, and I mentioned Pop Douglas too. So those are two guys that very well going up against each other. So it might come down to, I hate to say it, but Juju Smith-Schuster. You gave this guy a 3-year deal. You've got injuries. It's time to step up. This team really badly needs a win. Show us why they went out and got you. I mean, especially coming off that 4th down play, where he had the drop. I guess we can call it a drop. It hasn't been good enough with Juju. He's been a frustrating player this year, and I think, you went out and signed him. Let's see why. Devontae Parker, I know, has been at practice. He's still dealing with concussion issues. So they've got a lot of questions, and we obviously know Bourne is out.
I'm going to go with Pop Douglas. I think his workload has increased over the weeks, whether it be through injuries or whether it being he's redeemed himself. I think from that fumble earlier on in the season, I think he's a big playmaker. He's super dynamic, and I think that the Colts are going to be looking for this Patriots offense to be predictable. I think he is that one person that you can't always predict what's going to happen because he has those moves and he's able to get open and get a few more yards on the play. So I'm thinking it's going to be a big one for him.
We got to get more out of Mike Gesicki.
Yes.
I mean, I know he had the catch, that won that one game, but we've got to get more out of him.
Or what about Farrell Brown? Every time he gets the ball, he makes a big play.
With Farrell Brown, I feel anything that we get out of him is a bonus. I have no complaints with Farrell Brown, but I think Mike Gesicki and Hunter Henry's been okay, but the tight end position in general, I think we need to get a little bit more production out of the tight ends.
Yeah, well, that was one of the plays that was highlighted on the internet this week was Mike Gesicki wide open up the seam. So absolutely, and I mentioned Juju and him. I mean, these are two big pieces that you brought in. I think we were all kind of just expecting, though, Bill O'Brien was the key piece. That was the one that was going to take all these ingredients and put it together and make a nice meal. But I agree. I mean, Bill called him. He's basically like our 3rd or 4th wide receiver right now. Yeah. So he's got to be more productive. Jalen Reagor, he's been playing a bunch. He hasn't been productive either. So I don't really care who it is. They just got to find a way to produce.
I like Tamara's idea of Douglas because of the defense they're playing. With the crossing routes, and we talked about Stevenson before the break. I like those kinds of options underneath, getting the zone defenses crossing, see if you can get some mismatches, some natural rub routes. Mike, we don't like to call them picks, Mike.
You're beyond me, Paul.
We don't like to call them picks. We call them rub routes.
Rub routes.
And I think Paul has brought this up, I think, every single week, and it was his key to the game multiple weeks. Run the dang ball.
I'm never right, though.
If the Patriots can get back to their bread and butter of running the football, I think that could open up a lot of things for the wide receivers and tight ends as well.
Well, they had that one run last week with
We need
Ramon.
more than one.
I know. But 64-yard run, that was nice to see.
Well, and he's also been breaking some tackles, too, which I think is just a sign of the old Ramondre. Last year, the offense was in similar disarray, but he was able to get you yards. He'd get hit in the backfield. He'd spin out of it. Somehow he'd get you 4 or 5 yards. Those plays haven't really been there this year, but I think the last couple of weeks they have been. They've started, you're starting to see Ramondre get a little loose, shake some tackles, and hopefully, and with the big run last week, I'd love to see more of those.
Can we see? This is how captivating we are right here. Number 10 in the last row.
Was it 10?
Yeah.
Is that a braille? It looks like a 12, Fred.
I was.
It's probably a 12, Paul.
No, hey,
I was told there'd
Fred,
be no math.
Fred, maybe it's just jet lag, you know?
Yeah.
Patriots fans coming over, taking the red eye.
I feel the pain. But I during the break, I was coming in. A fan stopped me, and he said, "Mac Jones can do this. We just got to get him some help. We've got to get him, an O-line that can block, and we've got to get him one or two wide receivers." And he was pointing out, Josh Allen when he got Stephon Diggs, and Burrow, with his receivers, and Tua with his receivers. These guys have like two receivers that they can go to, and he feels that Mac doesn't even really have one. And he thinks that given the pieces, Mac could turn this thing around.
But I feel like my one thing with that is I feel like a lot of offensive lines around the league are pretty bad. I mean, if you look at Joe Burrow, he made it all the way to a Super Bowl with a bad offensive line. So I think it's more the tools in the tool belt. Like I think when you look at Joe Burrow and Josh Allen, they have the ability to have a big arm, and also they have the legs as well, the athleticism. So I think that it's a little bit of both. His tools in the tool belt, his weapons. There's a lot of things to point the finger at. I'm not really sure how much it would change with his weapons.
Like I said, just make the plays that are there. That's a starting point. Like, let's not come out of a game with 27 different amateur film breakdowns of look at this guy, look at this guy. Get over.
Evan's not on the show anymore.
Sorry.
You don't
Right.
have to
But no, Tamara, you said the word broken. Is it beyond repair? And sometimes, we've seen it with other quarterbacks in the history of the NFL that they just get off to the wrong foot in their career, and they're on a bad team, and they get beat up, and they just never recover.
Yeah.
They never, achieve the potential that people thought they had coming out of college because of the start that they had. Now, you could also argue, well, they probably weren't going to be that good anyway. And I think you're in that camp.
Well, it's tough to make that determination, but you're right.
I just don't know any other quarterbacks that have been dealt the hand that he had in terms of like the defensive coordinator being as an offensive coordinator, having multiple coordinators.
Kind of unprecedented.
Yeah. And then just, being on a team that's in the middle of a rebuilding stage already with a lack of pieces all around him. So I think that just the hand he was dealt was tough, but I'm looking forward to seeing if maybe he can overcome it. Obviously, it's been a couple years now, but we'll see.
Yeah, it's just like a philosophical question of, how do you get a quarterback back on track? And I think, Mac, we can talk about Mac's rookie year and, what it was, what it wasn't. But I think that he was at least in rhythm with the offense, and he knew what he was doing. And, how do you get him back to that point? Because a lot of these plays you're watching over the last few weeks, it doesn't look like a quarterback who's, in rhythm with the offense. And, I don't know, you guys have been watching a lot more football than I have, long term. But who are those quarterbacks? Does it require having to go to a different team and, be reset with a new offense and kind of just a clean slate? Because I felt like he was kind of getting that this year with Bill O'Brien.
I do think, all of those things are case-by-case basis, and you could make arguments, and you look at a guy like Geno Smith. Who,
that's a good one,
never really sort of panned out with the Jets and, bounced around a little bit. Then he goes to Seattle. He's the backup quarterback for a while, and then Russell Wilson leaves. He gets a chance, and he was competent. He played reasonably well, led the team to the playoffs, and, it looks like, there was some talent there all along. Could that happen with Mac Jones? Sure.
Yeah.
I mean, how do you know unless, it all unfolds and he gets that opportunity? But I kind of look at it, and I think all of the excuses for Mac Jones are valid. The offensive line hasn't played great. They haven't been able to run the ball. They haven't had the star playmakers and receivers. And I think all of that can be true, and Mac Jones hasn't played well, not handled all of those things well. And for me, it's a lot less. I know a lot of people fixate on the skill set, and I do too. I'm not saying that I don't, but like the arm strength and all that is relevant. But to me, the bigger thing is I want to see him sort of take the offense as his own and become a leader and sort of embrace the coaching that he's getting instead of sort of worrying about what he's not getting. Yeah. And I feel like there hasn't been enough
and I hate to say it, like right now, I just don't see the signs that if he had those things, he could do something with them. Right?
Yeah, he'd be better, but I don't know if he'd be the guy that you would want.
But if that was the case, you'd be seeing signs of it now, like, oh, wow, he's really making, we call it chicken salad out of chicken shit, right? I can do that. I'm in Europe.
We're a little bit looser with FCC regulations.
Yeah, like he would be doing things that you would say, okay, he's doing things without that. Man, if we just gave him that, but I'm not seeing those signs, and that's what it's frustrating me when it comes to Mac.
Fred, what was different about the Bills game? Like, I feel like we saw a different map in
Just
that
that
game.
last drive. I mean, I think it was,
It's a good question.
It was a handful of plays. I don't think it was like the whole game was.
Can I be really honest?
Go ahead, Paul.
They got 40 yards on the screen.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's what Paul does, guys.
They got
He
40 yards on a
He
screen
grounds
pass.
the show like that. He brings us back to reality.
But to be fair, okay, so that got them, to like the 30-yard line. They still had to get it in the end zone.
and the throw was to Hunter Henry.
But to me, the
and-
hard part was done because now
Yeah.
all the pressure's off. You're in field goal range, and now you're just going to squeeze it down there. They got a couple of penalties. He threw a good ball to Hunter Henry.
Yeah.
Listen, I've said this many times. I think he's good enough his skill set is good enough to win games. I don't know if you can win it all with him, but he should be better than this.
Yeah.
He's not a 2-7 quarterback in terms of his skills. It should be better than that. But I also look at the Bills game, and we were all in agreement. He was great. I thought he played great in the fourth quarter. The 2 drives, not just the 1, 2 touchdown drives. But at this point, after 3 years, that to me is a one-off.
Yeah.
That was the exception, not the rule.
And, the other thing that kind of just threw everybody kind of for a loop this year was you looked at the season and said, okay, the floor, we have a thing we call the floor and the ceiling. The floor is the worst you can be, and the ceiling is as good as you can be. And we said, probably the floor is 7 or 8 losses, because you got the greatest coach in history. And he'll keep you from going below that floor. And here we are at 2-7. And
10-7 still in play, Freddie.
well, yeah, it is. I have to admit, but that's something that surprised us. We figured that just having Bill Belichick would win us some games, and right now that's not even happening. So Ian from the UK writes in at webradio@patriots.com, and he says, "Why does Bill want to beat Shula's win record apart from he might have a grudge against him? Would you rather have 6 rings and 9 overall and not get the total wins, or be Shula and have the total wins and only 2 rings? Bill will be remembered for the rings, not the wins." I agree with that. I mean,
well, I think you
why
can make
can't
an
you have
argument.
both?
Wasn't that Teddy Bruschi's passionate speech on ESPN a few weeks ago? No one really doubts that he's a great coach, and that a lot of people think he's far better than Don Shula ever was. So I would agree with that sentiment, but obviously if you have a chance and you're that close to win more games as a coach than anybody else ever did, I can understand why that means a lot to him.
Yeah, he's so close. You've come so far. You can see why he wants to finish it. But I also think that it's just something that's kind of hung over this whole argument about what to do with Bill and, but the record.
I would hope that doesn't factor in,
right,
to be honest with you.
It shouldn't factor in. It's great for Bill. How much does it really mean for the fans? I don't know.
All right. You guys want to ask some questions? Anybody have questions?
Oh, yeah.
One person nodding. All right.
Everybody else nodding off.
Should we open it up to people asking questions? Do you want to do that? Okay. Number 10, what's your question?
I think it's 12.
Okay, all right.
I'm just saying.
He's out. We have a question in the front row. When is he going to play? Okay, so that's a good question.
This weekend maybe, but maybe not. I don't know. It's a good question. I mean, I'll let Tamara jump in, but yeah, it's a great question.
So when we do the show regularly, Fred said it at the beginning of the show, when we do it regularly, a lot of times we talk pretty open and we just kind of throw stuff around and not necessarily stuff that we know, but we kind of look at the reports this week about J.C. Jackson and Jack Jones not getting back to the hotel in time before the Washington game. And I go back to last Friday when Bill Belichick told us in his press conference that was the best week of practice that Kayshon Boutte had. 2 days later, he's inactive. A couple of guys were late. Might not anybody know that Kayshon Boutte was too? I don't know. It just didn't make any sense that they were so high on his week of practice. They were short at wide receiver without Kendrick Bourne and Devontae Parker. All signs seemed to point toward Boutte's going to play this week, and then he didn't. So I don't know if it was just because they felt like the roster needed more help somewhere else or if it was something else.
Yeah, and, not people can change, but coming out of college, Boutte had some red flags, right?
Oh, yeah.
That's why he was drafted so low.
He didn't want to let anybody get by you.
I mean, he was one of the top recruits. He was one of the top recruits in the country coming out of high school. And people thought that he was, maybe second-round talent. I think some people...
Well, after the 1 year.
After he had that game against, I think it was Ole Miss as a freshman, I think people thought he might be a first-round pick.
Right. So his off-field behavior made him available later in the draft, and that could be something that's rearing its head now.
Right.
Let's hope not. Let's hope he understands that he could have a very good future in the NFL and gets it together. But I go back to what I said when we started. Who are the people in the locker room policing these guys? Who are, who's taking Kayshon Boutte by the helmet and saying, hey, dude, smarten up, get with the program. You can be a great player in this league, but you got to do it the right way. I don't know. I don't know the answer to that. But somebody's got to step up, right?
Yeah, I mean, I would say too, we watch all the training camp. So we do live broadcast during training camp. We're up on the side of the stadium. We get the L22 view. Evan loves it. Can't get enough of the side of the stadium view.
Yeah. He's watching it right now on his phone. Yeah.
Boutte didn't do a lot this summer. He had a good third game in the preseason, and he had that touchdown run, and it was wow, great. But for all of us who watched every single one of those training camp practices and all the joint practices too, he was okay, So it's look, I get it. We're at the point now where it's like, here's a rookie that hasn't played since week one. Right. Get him in there. Let's see what we got. I think we can all agree on that. But it's just, what is the expectation level of what this player actually is?
And by comparison, we did see Demario Douglas every day in training camp. He was making plays every single day, and now he has a little bit of a role. And, I agree with Mike. There were spots here and there where you'd see Boutte make a catch, or the preseason game that you're talking about, good slant, catch and run after the catch. There's talent there, obviously, but we didn't see it as consistently with him as we did with Douglas. And, I think that's shown up. And one thing we can all agree on, back home, there's a narrative that he's not playing because he didn't get his foot in bounds on that last fourth down play in the opener against. That's not why. Bill Belichick doesn't have a guy in his doghouse because he couldn't get 2 feet in bounds on one particular play in his first game of his career. So
now maybe if he fumbled,
there's more. There's more involved than just that. But don't take shots.
Okay, all right. Any other questions?
Swearing, he's taking
question
shots at people.
Third row.
Yeah. Everybody's talking about Bill Belichick and how bad he is and stuff like that. But he always talk also about the team, about the people that around him. So is it the problem that in the last few years, so many good coaches like Dave Spinacchia and
yeah, brain drain.
Yep.
Nick Caserio left
Yeah.
organization. That is
That's a good point.
Part of it too.
And Mike mentioned it. We call it brain drain.
Yeah.
The guys the good coaches, they get good, and then the other teams take them and give them promotions. And let's go down the list. They lost Dante. Ernie Adams retired. He wasn't a coach, but he was an advisor. Nick Caserio left. He was a GM. He wasn't really the GM for the Patriots, but he went to become a GM with another team. Josh McDaniels left, who was the So that's a valid question. How much can you lose and still keep up the quality of the people around you?
I mentioned the offensive line too. I mean, the last 4 years, I think they've had 4 different combinations. I mean, this year you bring in Adrian Clem to hopefully settle things down. But I mean, since Dante has left, it's been kind of a rotating, whatever you want to call it, circle of, just coaches coming in, different techniques, different styles. And last year with Matty P trying to do the offensive line and the offensive coordinating, which again, to go back to training camp when we're watching it, he's coordinating the offense, and he's got to run to the offensive line, and he's coming back. You could just tell from that, this doesn't look like it's going to work, early on from our perspective.
Yeah, so we could talk about all those big names, but then there are guys like Matt Patricia that he's talking about. Brian Flores was sort of the de facto defensive coordinator, and that they had a lot of success with. And, he left to take a job. So over the last 5 to 7 years, they've lost a lot of coaches off the staff. And you brought up bringing up the offensive line, Carmen Brasil. It's not just Dante Scarnecchia, who's been gone a while now, but it's even the guys that replace the guys are now going. So there have been a lot of guys leaving.
But here's the thing: one of Bill's qualities is that he's very loyal to people, and he expects the loyalty back. But I think that quality hurts him when it comes to hiring coaches. He only wants to hire coaches that either he has experience with or the person that is recommending them is someone that is kind of in his circle of trust. And I think sometimes that limits the pool of coaches that he has to choose from.
Yeah,
I think that's kind of hurt him over the years.
I like that, Fred, because I was just going to say, I feel like the NFL has just changed so much, especially with the style of the quarterback play now. And I know Bill's a big defensive guy. I feel like the quarterback has changed. I feel like their guys are so much faster. And there's a lot of dual threat quarterbacks out there now. And I feel like when you have the league changing so much, you do need to bring in some fresh minds. I mean, look at Mike McDaniel. I feel like what he's done with Miami, like, I know people make jokes all the time. He looks like, a science teacher or an analyst or something. It's true. There are just so many different types of coaches out there. And why would you not want to bring in one of those unique, pieces that could really change your program for the better?
Absolutely. Ryan in Missouri writes in, he says, question I have is, why is Bill's coaching tree so unsuccessful when it comes to head coaching? I know they're good offensive coordinators and defensive coordinators, but why have they not blossomed into head coaches?
Yeah, it's a
great question.
Yeah, it's a great question. I mean, Bill O'Brien did have some success, with the Texans, and Romeo Crennel had success. I mean, it's not totally barren, but a lot of the new guys. I mean, look, Josh McDaniels, we just saw what happened with him. It's I mean, Paul, you got a pretty good take on this one. Is this really a bad reflection on Bill? Necessarily that everyone wants to make it out. Well, he must not be as good of a coach because none of his coaches went on. I
go the other way and I say maybe Bill's a better coach than all those other guys because they obviously weren't great without him. So they were able to do it. Now, I know it's a very simplistic way of looking at it, but you do wonder how much of it gets back to Tom Brady. And those guys got jobs.
Remember him?
What?
Those guys got jobs because, Josh McDaniels and then the one guy who had some success is Bill O'Brien, and he's the one guy out of all those guys that really wasn't born and nurtured in the New England system. He was already an established offensive coordinator at the high college level when he came to the NFL with Bill. So I don't think he was sort of fostered under that. He wasn't a creation of Brady.
Yep. Let's see. This is Sean, and he writes in from Maine.
Sean.
He says, I have never lost faith in Bill. I've lost faith in Mac. I knew he was not the guy halfway through last season. I wanted to cut bait and draft a quarterback this last draft. We should keep drafting quarterbacks until we get a winner. On the topic of an offensive genius, coaches, and weapon, and Evan, you could just shake your head, yes or no. Does Evan think of Sean Payton as one of those coaches? If so, how come the Broncos are not better with a supposed weapon like Jerry Jeudy to help Russ? So do you think that Sean Payton is one of those offensive-minded coaches?
Don't talk, just not.
Evan thinks Russell Wilson is washed. I would sort of agree with him on that. I think Russell Wilson is a shell of his former self. But I also wonder just how much, we're really close to the situation in New England. How much was Sean Payton all about Drew Brees and that environment, that controlled environment in the Dome?
Totally different in Denver, right?
Yeah.
Well, they only play at home, right?
That's the thing that's why I love American football so much. To me, it's the ultimate team sport. You can get into the Hall of Fame in American football and not even have any stats. Those are offensive linemen. They get in just because they block. There's no other sport like that where you have 11 guys all doing something completely different for the most part. And if one guy screws up, it can screw up the whole play. And it's kind of the same thing that we're talking about when it comes to, why were the Patriots great? Of course, Tom Brady was the main reason. We all know that now. But I don't think he would have been as great without Bill Belichick. And he wouldn't have been as great without Rob Gronkowski and Teddy Bruschi. And let's just start naming these players. That's why football's great. But you have to have that combination of coach quarterback is so key in the NFL. You talk about any of the great teams, and they seem to have that really good coach and really good quarterback.
Yeah, it's just the length of time, too. I mean, I think that's what's, unique about really having almost two separate dynasties of 3 Super Bowls. And, we talk about it all the time. Again, the draft is kind of my thing. But, just what would happen if Rob Gronkowski and Julian Edelman didn't come out of those years? The Chandler Jones, I Chandlered it.
It's Chandler.
I had Chandler here in Germany. I can't pronounce his name. Dante Hightower. They found those star players. And I think that's when you talk about how we got to this point is that as Gronk and Edelman started to fade out in the late 2010s, they didn't really hit those picks in the draft. And N'Keal Harry did not become the player that they needed him to become. Sony Michel did, although was a key part of a Super Bowl run, did not become, a first down worthy running back who could do it all and really threaten defenses in a number of ways. And, just my philosophy is that so much of this is just tied to those draft pick misses.
Okay. Let's see. Joe in Leamington Spa, UK.
Okay.
Let's go. He says, just to start, he says the Bayern shirt is getting hate because Bayern has won the last 11 league titles by buying the best players from the other Bundesliga teams, so they all dislike Bayern a fair bit. Is that true? That's not true? Yes, no, okay.
That's like a 50.
We got a definitive no and a definitive yes.
Speaking from the Patriots.
You're rooting for the Yankees, Fred. Congrats.
Speaking for the Patriots, we could use a little bit of buying the best players these days, right? That's not a bad idea. Anyway, in my opinion, Bill is not going to be the head coach next season. Too many things count against him, talent management, buy-in, drafting, but firing him midseason would be disrespectful for all the time and success during his tenure. I think we all agree with that. If that disrespect extends to firing him on Black Monday, then how about this for an idea? Announce before the last game against the Jets that an agreement has been reached. The Jets will be Bill's last game in charge. Then you can have the whole build-up and ceremony around the game and a full game, hopefully a win to celebrate the greatest coach of all time. No way.
No way because of this. I'll say, look, this has been kind of a tough season. Look, they're 2-7. There was nothing like Bill Belichick during Jets week. Jets week, he is laser focused.
Oh, yeah.
He wants to win that
Bill
game
hates the
more
Jets.
than anything
Hates
else
them.
in the entire universe. So, no matter how the rest of the season goes, tune into that game because especially if the Jets are trying to make it into the playoffs, I promise you, the Patriots could be 2-15 or they're 2-14 at that point. Everything he has will go into that game, and he will not let them do a whole pomp and circumstance ceremony for him as he's getting ready to play that team.
the idea.
Yeah.
That game might be wild simply for the fact that Aaron Rodgers is allegedly coming back.
That would be something because as people don't
Couple of
know,
weeks. That's
the
what he
Patriots
said.
have beaten the Jets 15 straight times.
16.
16 now. So if they beat them this year, they break the record for most consecutive wins against one team, right?
Oh my goodness!
Is that true?
I'm not
I
sure
think
about
so.
that stat yet.
That's
but
wild.
I think so.
Can we check that? Do we have a stats person?
I'm not sure. Well,
Only there was a way we could look that
there
up.
anyone?
at least it might be the existing record that ongoing
It's a
record
lot.
or something. But anyway, it's 17 straight wins against a team is huge, and you don't want to break that string. So you have to beat the Jets. But like you said, Tamara, if Aaron Rodgers is playing, that's gonna be wild.
It's going to be wild because I think that the Jets' defense is so good, and the only thing that they've been missing is a serviceable quarterback.
Yeah.
And sorry if there are any Zach Wilson fans in here, but he's not it, and
No.
never has been it. They're just not good.
There was an Aaron Rodgers jersey here earlier.
Are you kidding?
Oh, yeah, there was an Aaron
yeah.
Rodgers guy.
Okay.
Packers.
Any other questions? We had a question in the back.
Can you hear me from here?
Yes.
Yeah, we can hear you.
Offensive line has been one of the worst issues or more
Saying the offensive line has been a major issue.
but at least the last two games, offensive line
Last two games, it's been a little better.
really, but not the playbook or the offensive plays that has been used are, let's say, using this time that it's getting, at least on pass pro, from my point of view, is getting Mac Jones. So do you see that can be an improvement in the development or the time that they are using to develop the, once we are talking about the...
So do you think there can be an improvement in the type of plays that are called? Okay.
So he's talking about the offensive line has been a problem all year, but it's been a little bit better the last couple of weeks. And, there are things that they can do to make that even better in terms of play calling.
Yeah.
Right? So how do you feel about that?
I mean, yes and no. I mean, obviously, trying to chuck the ball downfield and let Mac hold up on big 7-step drops. It's probably not a great key. Ideally, you'd love to have just short passing game, and I think we've been kind of hammering that for most of this season, talking about that. That's the way you make up for an offensive line. I also think run the ball, run the dang ball.
But you talk about are these the right plays? And you look at the scoreboard and you look at the stats. You say, well, no, they're not working. But if you watch the game, they're plays that are there to be had.
Yeah.
And Bill even said it, or at least alluded to it in his press conference. There were opportunities there, and whether they were drop balls or missed passes or missed blocks or whatever, it's not the play; it's the execution. I think the play calling is fine. I think they're just not executing. And every time it's something different. It's a penalty. It's a missed throw. It's a guy running a wrong route. You can only get down to the basics so much. The Patriots have been easy to defend for too long. We've got to do something to break that. And so I don't look at the play calling and Bill O'Brien as the problem. I really don't. Yeah. I mean, I don't know if anyone agrees.
No, I mean, it's never going to be perfect, and there's always going to be plays that you can nitpick.
Sure.
But yeah, I would agree largely that it's not about the plays that they're calling, it's about the execution.
Yeah.
And the talent of the guys that are trying to execute.
Yep. Let's go to the phones, and we'll go to Todd in North Carolina. Hey, Todd. Oh.
Sorry, guys, I'm in the car, but I thought a really interesting thing going on from listening to your discussion. You guys are talking about, who's the guy in the locker room that's the leader that keep everything going? Who's the man that's going to take that? Who's in Bill's ear to help him get through things? Who's on the cookie?
We lost him. Okay. So
thanks, Todd.
He's kind of reiterating what I said before, wondering who are those people.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, it's Matthew Slater, it's David Andrews, it's the guys from the old guard, and I think when you look at Kyle Duggar being a free agent, it's who are the new guys, who are the young guys that are going to pick up the mantle and take it. You lost Devin McCourty last year, just one of the all-time great Patriots, great leaders. I think we're seeing some of the growing pains the last couple of weeks with all the big plays that they've been giving up without Devin McCourty there on the back end. So I think that's part of this coming off season is setting that trajectory. Matthew Slater, good chance he might retire at the end of this year. He's been doing it forever. David Andrews certainly closer to the end. So they have to find those guys. They have to find that next wave of players who are going to do it their own way. And I think in a way, Slater, McCourty, those guys are in a tough position. They were the ones charged with carrying the torch post Tom Brady. As we know now, maybe a near impossible task to continue that kind of level of discipline. And Brady himself was the standard bearer. He was the one who's first one in, last guy to leave, all that stuff. So it's just it's hard right now. And you hope that the team this offseason is going to say, hey, Kyle Duggar, you have some warts. He's not a perfect player, but this is a guy that we want to invest in and really show the rest of the team. This is a guy that is going to be around for a while and that you should listen to.
I mean, we're getting to the point on the Patriots team where the only person who has had Super Bowl success is Bill.
Yeah.
Matthew Slater, this could be his last season, and those guys are leaving, and so
Andrews still is.
Dietrich Wise is another name.
Wise.
Yeah, been
Juwan
around.
Bentley
Juwan
was
Bentley.
on the 18 team. Yeah,
yep.
so
but
there's not many though.
There's not many, and they all seem to be on the defensive side of the ball.
Yep.
Except for Andrews, and he's getting up there too. So, who are the voices, and what credibility do they have? And when you have a young team, then you need a strong coaching staff. Remember when Bill first came here? One of the first things he did in 2000 is he hired Romeo Crennel and Charlie Weiss and guys that had been around the block a little bit, and he brought them into the team, and because he knew that he had a team full of guys who hadn't won, and we get back to the brain drain. That's an issue. That's an issue.
Yeah.
Who are the coaches?
We should talk too, Fred, about just this offseason, no tight ends under contract, no tackles under contract. You have basically Ramondre Stevenson is your only running back. There's an opportunity, I think, regardless of what happens, coaching changes, quarterback changes, whatever happens next year, they have the opportunity to, and with cap space too, they got some money to spend theoretically. They have an opportunity to change things dynamically this offseason.
Okay, let's go to Harry in Connecticut. What's up, Harry?
If you say so.
Yeah.
First time caller, I just want to thank you guys for all the work that you do. I just wanted to ask what your guys' top 10 Patriots running backs of all time are.
Oh,
all right.
Top 10?
Yeah.
You got to go down 10? Oh, I don't know.
I'll give you my
all right,
one.
Thanks, Harry.
My one is Curtis Martin.
Yeah, Curtis Martin he was great.
Gone too soon.
Yeah.
He's still with us, Mike.
Not when he's off the Patriots. They're dead to me. It's a good question because really it's been a position that it's just had an interesting role within. I mean, is it wrong to say Kevin Falk? A guy who just
not at
was,
all.
Reliable in big situations.
He's probably in the top 10.
Wasn't wasn't one of those 2,000-yard rushing or anything like that. But good
Corey
player.
Dillon.
I like this question a lot because I feel like a lot of people have been saying that the Patriots offense has not been finding success because they're missing that third down back.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like, this year everyone's like, oh, we need James White. And I'm like, is it just the third down back that could really change the trajectory of this offense?
Well, James White's probably in the conversation just for that 28-3 game alone.
Yeah.
Right.
Right. I mean, Super Bowl championship.
Yeah. What about Tony Collins?
Oh, we're getting old school
Yeah,
now.
Sam Cunningham, if you want to go, back in the day, would be on my list.
1976.
Yeah. Where's Matt Smith?
Over there.
We got Horace Ivory.
Sam Bam Cunningham.
How did I dismiss him? I just brought him up. I didn't. I was not dismissive.
Yeah.
No, I would. Those are the guys that I would lean to. And the third down backs to me are a little different. They are backs, so they all count. And I would certainly have Shane Vereen, James White, Kevin Falk. Great Patriots. Yeah. All three.
Yep.
Tony Collins was a great Patriot too.
There was nothing quite like Curtis Martin though. Those first
Curtis
couple
Martin
years
was
where,
my favorite.
I mean, that was so many people might be newer Patriots fans, but that was a heartbreaking situation. You felt like you had an all-star running back, an absolute stud, and Bill Parcells came and stole him from you. It's, and then played you twice a year with him.
After 3 years of a Hall of Fame, he was going to the Hall of Fame, and that's where he wound up. And you got him for the first 3 years, and
then he ran to the Hall of Fame with the Jets.
A guy who I really like, but his career was kind of short-lived with the Patriots, was John Stevens. I thought he had potential.
John Stevens was a good player. He was a really good player.
He's the guy that hit the Jet, right?
No, the 49er.
Oh, the 49er.
It was Jeff Fuller.
Jeff Fuller got paralyzed from John Stevens running the ball into him. And
he was never the same.
I don't think John Stevens, I don't think he was ever the same after that. He didn't run as hard. That's football.
Yeah.
You know, that stuff happens.
Marion Butts.
I was just going to say Marion Butts, one of the worst all-time Patriots running backs.
Yeah.
Let's do the worst ones.
No, those are easier.
Yeah, Marion Butts was 3 yards in a cloud of dust. Yeah. Yeah.
Those are Derek Colors.
Yeah, it's funny, like in American football, running backs used to get drafted like first or second in the draft. You were a great running back in college. You would go high. And the position has changed lately, like over the last 20 years, I'd say, 15, 20 years, where running backs aren't as valued as wide receivers. And, the life of a running back on a team, they rarely get that second contract.
Yeah.
It's not as valuable a position as it used to be.
If you just look at Bijan Robinson right now, who's just, first couple of weeks just looks so good and, having trouble now really getting carries. And it's a fickle position. And, it's tough to pick one of those guys. With the Sony Michel thing, you invest and then it's not a long shelf life.
I feel like right now it's like the only one I really seeing getting like the bang for his buck is like Christian McCaffrey. But it's like, but
He's
how
always
long
hurt,
until he gets
right?
injured?
Yeah.
All right. Any other questions before we're going to wrap up the show in a few minutes? So if you have any question back there, yep.
I want to cycle back to the discussion we had regarding the outlook for the next season. In case Mac Jones does play better and we see some light at the end of the tunnel, how do you feel about picking up the fifth-year option? Because that's coming up this offseason, right?
Yeah, that's a good question.
So the question's about picking up the fifth-year option for Mac Jones.
Yeah, if Mac Jones plays better, and do you pick up that fifth-year option?
And yes, would be my answer.
Yeah.
But it's very affordable, and that's why my answer would be yes.
Yeah.
But the real question is, do you pick up the fifth-year option and still pick a quarterback if one becomes available?
Always.
I would still pick one simply because they don't seem to be not fond of Bailey Zappi, but they were okay with losing him. They cut him, obviously, over the summer, and they were able to sign him back to the practice squad. But it seems like they could be in the running for a backup quarterback if they were in place to get one.
And somehow, like, Will Greer's just been the practice squad guy, but somehow, like, do you give Will Greer a shot? People are speculating of that. But I just think, to Paul's point, the fifth-year option is pretty affordable, and it's just good business to always take a quarterback, and especially right now, because coming into the season, you felt like you've got Bailey Zappi, who is a potentially good backup quarterback. Coming into this year, I don't know anybody really was that down on him, and then they cut him. It was like, oh my gosh, what is going on? They cut Bailey Zappi. How could that happen? And since then, it's been really hard for him. They had the week where he was out for Malik Cunningham. So all the signs are pointing to they're not thrilled with their quarterback situation right now. I think Mac is in some ways probably in the second half you're playing for that fifth-year option.
But he has to play better. I know that's what you said in your question. He would have to play a lot better than he has.
Yeah. Any other questions? Last question. Anyone? Doesn't even have to be about football.
Right over here, Freddie. Right in the middle.
Where?
Will the Patriots ever be as good as they were, Fred?
Wow.
No. But that's not saying that they won't be good again. But to do what they did again, I don't think it's possible.
Crushing a young man's
to be for 20 years to go to 10 Super Bowls, or 9, whatever it was. That's unbelievable. That's averaging a Super Bowl every other year. That has never been done before in a 20-year span. And it's just, I can't see it being repeated, by the same team. So, no, they won't be ever as good as they were. But they still can get back up there and be as good as some of the best teams today. And that's where, my final thought on Bill Belichick is keeping that team together for 20 years through the success is one of his biggest accomplishments. Because you say, well, it's easy when you're winning. No, it isn't. Because when you start winning, guys want more. People start feeling entitled. Coaches start leaving, as we've seen. So to be able to keep that team together and consistently winning over 20 years, I think might be as big an accomplishment, doing that as it is actually coaching on the field. So,
Yeah, it's unfortunate to say, but I think we all realize now you have a little bit of a different perspective on the sustained success and how hard it is to, just consistently compete at a high level and to get to the AFC Championship like every year. Even with just some of the crappy teams that they faced on their way to some of those later AFC Championships, it's like, what you wouldn't give right now to just be one of those crappy teams that gets beat on the way to the Super Bowl.
Right. Yeah, I have no doubt that they can get back to the Super Bowl and have that, but, winning 6 and 20 years or whatever it was.
5.
Yeah, I'm with Fred. That's probably asking too much.
Yeah, Bayern Munich can do it because they buy all the players from the other team. So. But the Patriots do it.
Way to land that plane, Fred.
Right. All right, well, listen.
Hold on.
What?
We have one more thing to do.
Oh, what is that?
So we do picks every week we do picks, usually on Thursdays, but we're going to do a show again tomorrow night. So we will pick the Thursday night game, which I think starts at like 2:30 a.m.
Yeah.
Gotta hurry.
Something like that.
Hurry.
Yeah, and it's a real humdinger.
Gotta hurry. One of the game. This is not necessarily indicative of American football, but tonight it's Carolina at Chicago.
And what's the point?
And the
spread?
Bears are favored by 3.
Carolina at Chicago. Bears are favored by 3.
Someone recording this,
All right.
Alex?
All right.
Oh, by the way, our picks leader
It's
is
Alex.
sitting.
Oh, yeah,
sitting over
Alex,
here.
say hello to the
Alex.
crowd.
She's
She's
very
winning.
proud. She's beating everybody by, I think, 6 games. So she's also the only one who takes it with any degree of seriousness.
So Alex would never come down for the show. Then she started winning the picks contest, and then she started showing up, right? Oh, okay, all right. She's going to take the mic.
They had to twist her arm and get her to come on.
I
I don't know.
herself.
The leader.
You can just talk into it.
Just hold it here.
Yeah.
There you go.
Can
Say
you
hello,
guys hear
Alex.
me okay?
Yeah.
All right.
Why don't you start us off since you're
Okay,
you're
so
the leader.
Chicago is favored by 3.
Just thinking about
In
it.
Chicago.
That's what she does. She ponders it.
So
She
we
works it
normally
out.
pick the winner and the winner by the spread.
When's the last time Carolina won a game?
2 weeks ago. They beat Houston and the great C.J. Stroud.
Okay, I'll take the Bears, and I'll give them the points.
Okay.
Cool.
All right.
The leader has spoken.
And Paul has to mark them down because he keeps the book.
That's why I usually win.
Right.
I'm going
Cheats.
to put me down for the Bears too, Paul. I don't know. 2 bad teams. But
All right. All right.
Ugly game.
Paul?
Yeah, I'm going to take Chicago as well, but this is really bad football. What's the guy's name? Tyson Bagent?
Bagent, yeah.
I've taken Tyson Bagent, and I'm not really feeling great about that. That's why I'm chasing.
His dad's an arm wrestler.
So I will take the Bears, and I will lay the points.
Yeah, I want to take the Panthers, but I can't. So I will take the Bears to win, but I'll take those 3 points, and I'll hedge my bet. So
Fred
And
is
hold on,
fluent in
Evan from
gambler
the
parlance.
Peanut Gallery, who do you got?
I'm the only one taking the Panthers.
all right, okay.
Taking the Panthers.
That's why Evan's in last
Evan's
place.
in last place for the
Taking the Panthers, A, because I need to catch up to these jokes, but B, because Bryce Young has a coming out party. I think Bryce Young plays well.
Evan's-
Okay.
To those at home, Evan's pitching a Bryce Young coming out party.
Yes.
There we go.
All right, well,
That was the
listen.
most reluctant
Want to thank everyone for listening all over the world. We'll be back tomorrow at noontime Eastern, 6 o'clock local Frankfurt time. We're going to be at Gibson Club. It's going to be a little bit of a different show because there's going to be stage things, and we're going to be throwing it to guests and everything. So tomorrow's more like a variety show, if you will. But we'll be at Gibson tomorrow at 6 o'clock for those people in Frankfurt. Noontime, our regular time, but it's a Friday show, so we'll see everyone tomorrow. Thank you for being here.
Thanks, everyone.
Subscribe on Apple, Google Play, and everywhere else you listen. Like the show? Please rate and review us. Listener comments and ratings help keep us high in the podcast rankings so new listeners can find us. Be sure to check Patriots.com for more news and more podcasts.
The world's original podcast.